Hello and welcome to today's Delta Credit Tip. So today we're going to talk about structuring settlements. There are certain things you're going to want to do before you send any money to that debt collector. Today we're going to give you 5 steps that you're going to want to take before you send any money. So stay tuned, we'll come right back with today's Delta Credit Tip. Hello YouTubers and welcome back to today's Delta Credit Tip. So it may come to pass in your credit restoration process that ultimately you end up having to pay a debt, right? It could be a charge off, it could be an active account, whatever the case may be. In the course of trying to fix your credit, you may have to pay. And it could be because they've proven the debt, or maybe it's a condition of a loan, maybe a mortgage or a business loan, or maybe you find yourself faced with being sued. Maybe the debt collector or creditor has already proven the debt and proven the amount and proven they're the right ones to collect the debt. Whatever the case may be, trying to settle a debt can be pretty intimidating. So we're hoping that by the time this video is over, you're feeling a little bit more confident, armed with a little bit more information to make sure that your settlement or your payment is a successful one and accomplishes what you want to accomplish. If it is, please give us that thumbs up, subscribe below, don't forget hit the bell because every Thursday you're going to want to be informed because we're going to come out with new information to help you with your credit restoration process. Of course, share the information because if you find yourself in this situation, there are several others out there that you know that are faced with this same problem. All right? As a matter of fact, 1 in 3 people need credit repair help. So just share it anyway, right? Help us help them. Make a choice to make a change here with Delta. So, you've got to settle a debt. There are certain things that you're going to want to do first before you send any money, and we're going to go through these 5 things. Okay? The first thing, before you send any money, you want to make sure that you validated the debt. You can call it proof of obligation, you can call it discovery, whatever you want to call it. You want to make sure of certain things about that debt are valid before you send it. The first being that you still legally owe it. And this stems around statutes of limitations. We've had this in many videos before. So if you want to go back to some of our old videos, we talk more in depth about statutes of limitations. You're going to want to do that. But basically each state has different shelf lives for different types of debt. And there's basically 4 types: written, promissory notes, open-ended loans, and oral agreements. And so again, each state has their own statute of limitations. So you're going to want to research that so that you know what the statutes of limitations are. And when you ask that creditor or that debt collector about when you stop paying and timing that debt, you may find that it's not a legal obligation that you have anymore. And that kind of changes things a little bit. Right? The second thing you want to validate is you want to make sure that the amount that they're trying to collect from you is the actual amount that you're legally liable for. It is illegal for a debt collector to charge you interest or fees. So if they're charging you $3.95 because you're using a debit card, or if they're charging you interest, you're going to want to make sure that that is written in the original contract that you wrote, or the original contract that you signed with that original creditor, because if it's not written in those terms and agreement, which is why we ask you to keep that stuff, they can't assign it, they cannot sell it without that being in the contract. Now, caveat here, if you're being solicited by an attorney is kind of above that law. They can charge interest because it's legally allowed. But if it's Joe Schmo debt collector, then that law still applies. All right? So you also want to make sure that the entity that's trying to collect the debt, that they are still actually the responsible party to collect the debt. There has to be some sort of chain of title. They have to show through some sort of contract that they're the ones that's currently owning that account that you were going to pay, because you don't want to pay the wrong company, because that's just going to cause a whole lot of problems for you. All right? So again, validate the debt, make sure the amount that you're trying to owe is what they claim, the person that you're paying or company that you're paying is the rightful party, and again, that you're still legally liable for that debt. The second thing you want to do before you send any money whatsoever is you want to make sure that you're financially ready. There's no point in setting up an obligatory payment if you're not prepared to pay it. If you're broke, wait a while. Save up some money. What we always recommend is that you save the actual dollar amount of the debt just in case the settlement doesn't get as deep as you would like or reduced as much as you like. And the last thing you want to do is to not be prepared, because usually a settlement only lasts for a certain amount of time. That agreement has a certain amount of time, usually it's between 30 and 60 days. After that, they're going to really come back to you and say, well, we were going to give you that, but since you didn't pay it, we're going to charge you $300 or $400 more for spite. And you definitely don't want that to happen, because that's just never fun, right? Also, you got to be careful with installment plans. The reason why is that an installment plan will not fix your credit until you're done paying. And as a matter of fact, it could actually hurt your credit in the process. If this is an older debt, but yet say still within statutes of limitations, what you may find is that as you're making those payments, they're updating the balance. And every time they update it, it could potentially lower your score. Because for the bureaus, it's like it's a new report every time you pay. And that could be a bit awkward when you see your score going down as you're paying off the debt. All right? Now, a funny thing that we've discovered is if you've got a credit card, most credit cards, once they've charged off, they're over the limit. Once you've paid it down to below the limit, it kind of triggers that debt to credit ratio still with the credit bureaus. So you want to set up that installment plan to where you can get below that threshold of the limit as quickly as possible. All right. But again, don't make any settlement agreements until you're ready to make that payment. Okay. Now, the third thing you're going to want to do is you got to be prepared to say no. Not all good deals are good deals. Okay. So you've got to be prepared to say no and walk away and maybe try to revisit it later when you can have a better agreement with that collector of the debt, whether it's the original creditor or the debt collector. And another big reason why you may not want to go ahead and accept whatever agreement that you've come across is the fact that they may not delete for payment. A deletion is not a requirement. They're not required by law to delete something from your credit report just because you've paid them, right? You're going to have to negotiate that piece. And if that's not part of the contract, then you may want to second guess whether or not you want to actually pay them at that time. All right. So now, fourth thing, super important. You got to get it in writing. Okay. If you don't get it in writing, funny things start to happen, right? You may find that they try to sell the remainder of the debt. You may find that the dollar amount may change. So you want to make sure that you've got that contract in writing before you make the payment. Otherwise, you may find yourself in a bit of a pickle. And then when you're done, obviously you want them to send something to you, either a deletion letter or a satisfaction letter or something that shows that there's no residual financial obligation on your part, so that you can move forward without having to look over your shoulder every time you pull your credit report. Right? Now, fifth and last thing that you're going to want to do as you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay these debts is if you've got a specific goal in mind, like getting a mortgage or a business loan or a car loan, go to the lender. You may find that not all debts matter to that lender, and it can cause you to want to prioritize the kinds of debts that you're paying. Remember, having good credit is different than being lendable. And you may find you can still have some of those collection accounts or derogatory accounts on your credit report and still accomplish the goal that you want, and you can let those accounts basically rot, right? Because eventually the second statute of limitations, where it just simply falls off the credit report, will come to pass, and then you can move forward with your life. Right? So again, 5 things that you're going to want to do. First, you want to validate the debt. Second, you want to also make sure that you're financially prepared for the debt. The third thing you want to do is you got to be prepared to say no. The fourth thing you're going to want to do is make sure you get it in writing. And last, before you pay anybody off, make sure that you've checked with that lender if you've got a specific goal in mind so that you're not paying off things that really don't matter and you can save that money for something more useful in accomplishing your goal. So again, I hope this information helps. Thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, share it with the world. And this is how you make a choice to make a change. Delta.